Okay, here's a quick tour of the Roland VQD106. So this is their quiet series, and it is indeed quite quiet. All of the pads have mesh heads, including the cymbals have mesh heads on the bow at least. All of them have, rubber edges, which are just slightly more noise coming out of them, and the snare, of course, has the rim that's rubber. Even the kick is quite quiet. So the whole system's very, very quiet. Perfect for practicing, at night or in an apartment or something like that. I happen to live in a house, but I still have to worry about waking up my wife. If we turn on the sound, I'm rendering all the sounds through EZDrummer at the moment. I'll get into that in a second, but then you can hear what it really sounds like. It's a nice sensitive snare for ghost notes. Obviously velocity sensitive. And of course, rendering the sounds through EZDrummer, it has samples at different velocities, and it doesn't just sound louder, it sounds different. So here you can hear just the snares barely moving. And as you hit it harder, you can start to hear kind of the ring of the shell, which is kind of interesting. Cymbals being dual zone. Also, you can hear the difference between the edge and the top. There's the bow. There's the edge. Let's do it separately. Bow, edge. And you can see you can choke the cymbals. This one I think sounds a little bit drastically different on the edge. I think that's just a sound effect I have assigned to that one actually. But so the dual zone clearly. And then of course the snare is dual zone, so you can get cross stick if you hit it softly. You can get rim shot if you hit it a little harder, or just don't hit it and you just get a center shot. One thing to notice, underneath the mesh head is this kind of honeycomb rubber, which helps with the sound. But you can see, I don't know if you can actually see, but there's different segments of the rubber around the very edge. So hitting it in the center, it gets quite a bit quieter at the edge, hitting it the same amount. But so it doesn't really have positional sense, but at least the velocity does change depending on where you hit it. So it's not quite as good of a pad as maybe, the Roland, let's say the PD, was it 14 DSX? That actually has real positional sense. And so then like Superior Drummer can render different sounds depending on where you hit it also. So the same kind of thing, like the velocity changes, rendering with different sounds, you'd actually have different sounds depending on where you hit the pad. But this doesn't have that, just simple velocity, but it has this kind of natural physical, the physical structure of the thing makes the edges have less velocity, which is somewhat natural feeling. Getting into EZDrummer, I think it's very cool that these samples have been made with an array of microphones, and you get to control each of the microphones. So, they sampled a real drum kit with microphones all over the place on all the rack toms and hi-hat and snare and everything. And some room mics, overhead mics, and you get to control all of that. And you can kind of see some interesting things that happen. Like if I just hit the high tom here, you can actually hear the snares engaging. The snares on the snare drum are engaging just sympathetically, just by some resonance to it or physically connected to it. And you can see it in the mixer a little bit. The highlighted column there. You can see a little bit of snare coming through when I hit just the high tom. So I can mute that, or I can change the volume of it, take that away, that kind of thing. You can make adjustments just on a per, drum setting. Obviously you can change the velocity and things normally, but like let's say I bump up the kick a lot, you get kind of an overpowering kick. But you have full control over all of that. The room mic or the overhead mic is a great one to kind of be able to hear all of the overtones of interplay between the pieces of the kit. So anyway, I think this is a great setup. You know, the Roland module is not too bad, but I basically just use it as a MIDI trigger now. The sounds that come out of it are pretty good, but it's more of a black box, like it's literally a black box there, and you don't really have the kind of fine-grained control that you do in EZDrummer or EZDrummer, and you don't have as many choices at all. You know, EZDrummer, EZDrummer have recorded drum kits in various rooms. Let's see if we can go move to a tight room. Totally. Different sound. Oh yeah, on the hi-hat, I should mention that you know, this foot pedal just gives you the positional sense of your foot, you know, MIDI CC commands, and the module or EZDrummer convert that to different sounds. So, you know, closed hi-hat, you can barely hear that. Open or partially closed, you can start to hear it clanging together. You can hear it shut. That juk sound is not the sound of my foot moving. That's actually a sound generated by a sample. And you can do a foot splash. Come on. There you go.